She wasn't the most beautiful woman in the world, but she made the most powerful men in history fall at her feet, not with her body, but with her mind. She didn't seduce with skin. She conquered with strategy. Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, the Roman Empire itself. They weren't chasing a woman. They were chasing the feeling she gave them. This is Cleopatra, not the myth, the master of emotional command. They called her a temptress, a woman who ruled with beauty, a dangerous seductress who brought men to ruin. That's the myth. But the truth? She was a polyglot scholar, fluent in 9 languages. She studied philosophy, science, and politics. She restored Egypt's economy, negotiated with Rome, and ruled during one of the most turbulent periods in ancient history. She wasn't just beautiful. She was brilliant. Cleopatra didn't conquer with lust. She conquered with strategy, timing, and emotional intelligence. While Rome underestimated her, she understood exactly how to move them. She didn't wait to be chosen. She rolled herself in a rug and had herself delivered to Julius Caesar on her own terms. This wasn't seduction, it was symbolic theater, a masterclass in presence. She knew how to shape moments so powerful they would become legend. So when history tries to reduce her to skin and seduction, remember this: the myth was designed to dismiss her. The truth is far more dangerous. She was a queen not because men loved her, but because they couldn't outthink her. She didn't just walk into a room, she arrived. Every movement, deliberate. Every glance, calculated. Every word, layered with meaning. Cleopatra understood something most people never do. Presence is more powerful than persuasion. She didn't beg for attention. She commanded it, without force, without noise, because she knew that mystery creates gravity, and gravity pulls people in. When she first met Julius Caesar, she wasn't announced with trumpets. She didn't ride in on gold. She had herself smuggled into his private quarters, hidden in a rolled-up carpet. And when it was unwrapped, there she stood, alone, radiant, calm, uninvited but unforgettable. She didn't just enter the room, she became the moment. That's not beauty, that's theatrical genius, that's emotional command. Cleopatra used her presence like a sculptor uses a chisel, to shape perception, to mold memory, to leave a mark. Even her silences spoke louder than armies. In a world ruled by men who shouted to be heard, Cleopatra proved that you can say everything without raising your voice. They say she seduced Caesar. They say she bewitched Mark Antony. They say love made her powerful. They're wrong. She didn't chase romance. She used it, not as manipulation, but as diplomacy. She understood that love, or the illusion of it, could be a weapon, a bridge, or a shield, depending on how you wielded it. With Julius Caesar, it wasn't candlelight and poetry. It was stability for Egypt. It was protection from Rome's hunger. She gave him legacy, and in return, he gave her time to rule. With Mark Antony, it wasn't infatuation, it was influence. 2 leaders, 2 empires. Their union wasn't scandal, it was strategy. Because Cleopatra didn't fall in love, she made love fall into alignment with her vision. She didn't control men with her body, she controlled the story they told themselves when they looked at her. She made them feel chosen, not because she needed them, but because she knew that people will fight to protect what they believe they've won. That's not seduction, that's statecraft. And while history paints her with a lover's brush, they miss the real art. She didn't win hearts, she recruited them. Cleopatra ruled millions. She commanded armies, spoke to emperors, negotiated with the most dangerous men on earth. But she rarely raised her voice. She never needed to, because true power doesn't need to shout, it whispers and still gets heard. Cleopatra understood something timeless. You don't control people by dominating them. You control them by making them feel seen, important, and understood. She didn't impose her will. She aligned it with theirs. She knew how to ask the question that made them say yes and believe it was their idea. That's not weakness. That's psychological precision. Even her enemies noticed she could enter a negotiation empty-handed and leave with the terms she wanted and a smile on the other side. She didn't control through fear. She controlled through presence, insight, and timing. Because Cleopatra knew people resist pressure, but they surrender to meaning. She didn't dominate the game. She redefined the board. And while her rivals wasted their strength pushing, she mastered the power of pull. Leadership isn't about rank. It's not about titles, armies, or crowns. It's about emotional gravity, the silent force that makes people lean in when you speak and follow, not because they must, but because they believe. Cleopatra didn't command through fear. She led through feeling. She read rooms like scrolls. She could sense tension before it cracked and speak words that calmed storms before they rose. She made allies feel essential and enemies feel like guests. She didn't manipulate emotions. She mastered them, especially her own, because she understood the one who controls the mood controls the moment. In times of crisis, she didn't panic. She paused. In times of insult, she didn't retaliate. She reframed. She made emotional discipline look like magic, but it was strategy. She didn't aim to be liked. She aimed to be remembered, and she was. Because in a world of swords and thrones, Cleopatra proved that the sharpest tool is a well-timed word from a woman who knows exactly who she is. That's not charm, that's leadership in its rarest form. Centuries have passed, empires have risen and fallen, but Cleopatra's presence still lingers, not because of legend, but because of what she mastered. Still applies today? She showed us that. Presence outweighs performance. You don't need to be the loudest to be the leader, just the most aware. Emotional intelligence is real power. Influence begins with understanding, not control. She didn't dominate feelings. She channeled them. Black pawn love can be strategic, not shallow. She used relationships not as escapes, but as bridges to protect her people, her throne, her legacy. Words can disarm more than weapons. She could win over generals, kings, and rivals, not by force, but by knowing what they needed to hear. You don't need to change your nature to lead. She ruled like a woman, not in spite of it. These aren't ancient tricks. They are timeless strategies for power, peace, and purpose. Whether you're in a boardroom, a classroom, or a conversation, Cleopatra's legacy reminds us. You don't need to control everything. You just need to master yourself. And the room will follow. Some rule with armies, some with money. But the rarest leaders rule with presence, with emotional command. Cleopatra didn't dominate through brute force. She didn't need to raise her voice or lift a sword. She led with her ability to read people, to sense fear, desire, insecurity, and answer it without a word. She mastered the room long before she opened her mouth. This was her true power. In the presence of kings, generals, philosophers, she remained calm, unshaken. Her emotions were never a weakness. They were a tool. She knew when to show warmth and when to show silence, when to let others speak, and when a single glance would do more than 1,000 words. This wasn't manipulation. This was emotional intelligence turned into strategy, a deep, intentional awareness of herself and others. She could de-escalate conflict with a look. She could build trust with a sentence. She made people feel seen, and in that feeling, they followed, because humans don't follow commands. Cleopatra wasn't just a queen. She was a mirror, a force that reflected back what others needed. And in doing so, she held the room, held the moment, held power. Leadership today still chases control, but Cleopatra teaches us something else, that the most powerful in the room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who listens deeper, feels clearer, responds slower. The one who commands not by force, but by understanding. In a world chasing rule, be the one who commands with presence, with balance, with emotional clarity. Be the leader who doesn't need to overpower, because they already own the moment. She didn't fight with swords. She fought with presence, precision, and emotional command. And she left a legacy more powerful than armies. If you want more timeless stories like this, subscribe now. The past still speaks. You just have to know how to listen.